Welcome to the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. I'm Joey Calvo. We are awaiting our guest. So, as we are awaiting our guest, our podcast is part of the World Podcast Network. Now, with over 1,100 podcasts, visit the World Podcast Network at https://worldpodcast.network to listen to podcasts in over 12 genres. Come vote our podcast episodes up and help us rise on the leaderboard. If you have a podcast of your own, you can join for free. Okay, our guest has arrived. We are in the middle of Pride Month, and today our guest is Garrett Garland.
Yes, that's me.
And we're going to discuss issues within the LGBTQ community. So, Garrett, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
I'm also here to talk about my new book. So
yes. And I do apologize. I'm not feeling as well. I thought I was going to be okay. I think I ran into a little chest cold, but I'm going to get through this the best possible.
That's all right.
And I had the eye doctor today, so I'm a little tired on top of all that. So, but Garrett, as we're getting started here, explain who Garrett is and how we got to where.
I am a newly published author, but I've spent most of my time, and a lot of my writing had to do with drawing from my time in university and then spending time abroad where I lived in Paris and on and off in England, and sort of
back in a moment
pulling from all of those things, because I thought I would go into academia. I thought I was going to be like a professor or something. That's what I was going to do.
Okay. I do apologize, Garrett. As we were getting started, the Wi-Fi cut out. I have the T-Mobile 5, that T-Mobile home internet, and it's not the greatest with live stream. So I apologize if we get cut out.
That's all right.
So you may have to start over explaining yourself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I started out as a young kid at university thinking I was going to go into the world of academia, and ultimately wound up deciding, after living in Paris and England, that wasn't for me. I didn't want to be stuck in an archive for the rest of my life doing research, although I like doing research. I do. But I decided I wanted to be a writer instead. I probably had every job on the planet.
Okay.
But then once I finally finished my book, now it's like, oh, you are not unemployed. You are now finally self-employed.
Yeah.
Very nice. And I have a very supportive husband. But that sort of, I even did the influencing thing for a bit. And where it's like wineries pay you to like post about, and resorts pay you to post about their, establishments. But then the pandemic hit and no one could go outside or do anything. So that killed that career. So I said, oh, well, God damn it, I might as well finish this book, because I actually finished it. I started writing it in 2014 and I actually wound up finishing it in 2020. And then it took about a year or two to get someone willing enough to want to publish it, which that process is like, you throw out 5,000 queries, you hope 4 say, oh, we're interested, and then you only need 1. But it's like, it was like a year of just sending query letters, and it's a process. In terms of, I guess, themes that I explore, I mean, in the book itself, it's about a kid sort of who grows up in a world of privilege. However, he is struggling with his sexuality and is sort of rejected by the entire little bubble that he knows, private institution he went to, the parents, the money's dried up, everything, and now he has to go to public school and grapple with that. And he does find love when he goes abroad to Paris. Oh, I wonder where I came up with that idea. And and then he sort of does this addiction, self-discovery, sort of making peace with himself after enduring a childhood of abuse prior to his coming out, I would say, and making peace with that. So that's a sort of process. Now you should probably ask me something because I'll just keep talking. So
we're fine. We're fine because I want people to know who you are.
Right, yeah. So you have to, at some point, you do have to cut because I'll just keep going.
And believe me, we want to learn as much as we can. I actually do have some questions. One I did send you, and you were a little confused about, and I'm gonna bring it up right now. So just bear with me one moment.
Just sort of a left field of what I was anticipating, but
yeah. You had mentioned about events, in reference to maybe adolescence in the LGBTQ community, and the actual person that sent the question is not just the podcast's number one supporter, number one fan, but she is actually a bisexual superheroine in real life. So American Fox, that's her name.
Yes.
Her question was, in reference to these events that you have, do you try to bring out?
Oh, now it's funny now that you read it out loud, because I swear I read it to myself. When you edit books, you're supposed to read it out loud. Now that I hear it out loud, now I understand. Well, not all heroes wear capes.
Yes,
I would say. Although I would say, like I said, superhero. I think no one explicitly, although I do think the character himself is sort of a sad protagonist, and I think he is rescued by many superheroes, probably his bisexual friend Cecilia the most, and then later on this professor that befriends him.
Okay.
And I think he's very resistant to being saved by anyone. At one point, I think he's so embittered because he's convinced he's like some reincarnation of a suffering poet. It's almost a way in which he protects himself. And he's very angry at the world and particularly God. And he says, "How dare you put this soul inside this vessel? If you cannot give me a path for which I can carve out, then I will destroy this vessel which houses this soul." Something like that.
Okay.
All this self-destructive behavior. But the people around him, particularly his bisexual, very provocative friend, and later the love Henry Hubert that he meets later on, which was his professor, but they don't get together until after he's not his professor, so it is all up on the up and up. There's no abusive power dynamic, but that's probably the extent that I could answer that question.
Okay, yeah, because like I said, with her being a superhero, a real life superheroine, she and being bisexual, she wanted to bring that question out because at least now you know of one that if you ever have an event and you're in Texas,
we have a real celebrity. Oh, I love Texas. I love Houston most of all. It's so funny. So many cities in Texas have come. They've come a long way, but people think of Texas like, I mean, you can get a Buffalo burger, but then there's like nightclubs and a very gay scene. And they keep the clubs like 32 degrees, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
well, at least like you said, if you ever have an event down there, at least that
I have one superhero friend I can call upon. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. All right. I also have another question from a Samuel Karp, and here's his question. So, as an internationally known author, what was the inspiration for your first novel?
Oh, well, I probably answered that a little bit, but the inspiration probably had mostly to do with my travels and my investiture in academia, because I spent so much time studying particularly French intellectual history and a lot of philosophers, and I do have a knack for, even though I'm talking about a 21st century issue, and I think I sometimes talk like someone who was resurrected from 200 years ago. Not intentionally, but it's just who I am. I sort of found a way to bring that 21st century issue of a coming of age and coming out story, and finding a way to circulate all of my knowledge of different philosophies. I mean, at one point when he's like struggling to understand the world around him, he posits the question of a philosophical elephant. That's one of those things where, a philosopher touches the trunk and he thinks he's holding a snake, and then when one's holding, the side, he's touching a mountain, and then one has their hand on the leg, they're blindfolded or blind presumably, and then one says he's holding a tree. Now we know it's an elephant, but in schools of philosophy, it's like we're all touching a different part, and he's trying to put the whole world to make sense around him together. So so that was a lot of my inspiration for the book. Not like I said, I'm kind of I love Northern California. I love where I live. However, I always think of like, this is where I live, but Paris is like my hometown. I don't know. No, I spent 6 years studying French, speaking French. Thought that's what I was going to do, not teach French, but teach French intellectual history, and wound up running a completely opposite direction, but found a way to sort of keep it all together. So that was my inspiration.
Okay. So you said you have a new book out?
Yes. Oh, I guess I should have it in my hand. That's so unprofessional.
It's okay. This is kind of an unprofessional podcast.
Yes, To Never See Heaven by Garrett Garland. You think that I had my drink, tissues, smoking device, and no book next to me. It shows you what's really important to you in life. Yes, To Never See Heaven. There you go, by Garrett Garland.
Okay. So explain about what got you into writing this novel.
Oh, well, okay, I probably figured out I was a writer. I've always been a talker. I started talking when I was 11 months old, full sentences. My grandmother called me the governor, so I was always a talker. Then and could never shut up. Really, it was almost a problem. Considering she thought there was something wrong with me, because as a baby I didn't cry, I didn't do anything, and then one day I just genie came out of the bottle, and she wasn't going back to that circular couch ever again. Then, and then around the 7th grade, I wrote a short story, and they had me read it at an assembly, and then they were like, "You're a writer," and I wrote just not anywhere around that sort of Twilight-y style that everyone was probably reading, not colloquial at all, because it had to do with a girl living during the time of the American Revolution or something like that. And I could write it in like the pocket of like a Bronte-esque style that was probably different from anything, just like an old, like, there's probably too many like tises and thous in it, but it was good. And then I was like, God, I want to be a writer. And then I worked on a book that I still have in a drawer somewhere that was an expansion of that story. But then at the end of college, after living in Paris, living in England, coming back from being abroad, I decided I wanted to write about this coming of age story, and I wanted to incorporate all the things I had learned and ascertained, knowing I wasn't even going to go forward, probably, in the world of academia. And, but I wanted to tell a gay story. I think I also had a lot of things I wanted to explore probably about myself, because I'm pretty gay. Just looking at my voice and everything. So I suppose I had a lot of things I wanted to explore myself. But so as gay as I look and sound, I didn't come out till I was like 17, 18. I was a late bloomer. I wish someone had told me, because I watch old home movies where I'm 4 and 5. I'm like, God, that kid is very gay. But no one ever told me. And so this person is having also a late life reconciliation. Now, like, what it is a work of fiction, but obviously there's things you draw from.
Okay. So my next question for you is this one. And as you were chatting, I was, of course, one thing that you mentioned was, about in reference to the 21st century, of how the LGBT community is coming. What are the main issues that you see now in this 21st century with the gay community?
Oh, that is such an excellent question. I think eradication, for one thing. I think where we were from, even you think about in 2008, Obama and Hillary Clinton are not even thinking about gay marriage. Cut to 7 years later, then we get it. Now, let's cut to, that's 2014. Now, 10 years later, you can go into Target, you can go anywhere, there's rainbows everywhere. RuPaul's in its 59th season. However, it concerns me, the comfortability, that while it is acceptable, like, I don't even think the most religious person in church doesn't have like a gay uncle or nephew or something. I think at this point, even though you go to like Stonewall, we used to be an invisible class, and now we're obviously there. We're queer. We're here. Get used to it. But I think to become comfortable that this is normal, when look at what just happened with Roe v. Wade. Look at it's not. We're not out of the woods. Like these are all very relevant issue. Like it is never not going to be an issue. In terms of like it can, the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Like it can always be taken away. And it hasn't been, even though it went through the court, it has not been ratified in any constitutional measure. I think the other parts, 21st century issues, I think, oh my God. I mean, I think everyone's very hung up on the pronouns. I don't mean the people who want the pronouns. I mean the people who have a problem with using the pronouns. I mean, it's like going to a woman and you say Miss and she says, no, it's Mrs. It's just like, you just call people what they want to be called. Like I don't know you, and if you want they and them, I don't see what it takes out of my day to say it. And I don't know why humiliating somebody is more important than saying it's not proper English. I just think we should be kind. I will say, however, while that is another, non-binary is under the umbrella of LGBTQ, and they're also fighting for space at the table. But for everyone else who, like, because I'm a boy, I'm a he. I'm pretty, but I'm not non-binary or anything like that. It seems like even people within the own community, or even people who are allies, but they don't understand it. It's like those people are getting pushed down, and it seems to be affecting. I don't think it's actually affecting progress. I think people think that's annoying, I don't understand it, and you're affecting the progress we've made. And I don't think that's true, but I think people think it is. And I just think if it was a non-issue, it would be an issue.
No.
And then you could just call people whatever the hell they want to be called.
Right.
I don't know.
Great. Well, excuse me. I actually have a lesbian sister that I didn't know until I was graduating high school, and we're coming up on 35 years from that. And and again, thank you, T-Mobile. Okay.
Oh, we're back. We're back. Okay.
Yeah, we're back. So I was starting to say about my sister. One of my classmates comes up to me and says, "Oh, you know your sister's lesbian?" And I said, "What?" Like I said, 1989. You didn't hear much about this at the time,
right?
And so I'm like, "No, I didn't know this." Thank you for telling me. 18 years, and my sister decided to talk about it or something, or must have said something in front of him to tell me, for him to come tell me. And so I got to learn a little bit about it. I accepted, and in reference to I'm going to date myself now, about 2.5, 3 years ago. And my best friend, who I grew up with, was married, had a regular life, still has a regular life, all of a sudden got divorced and came to me and says, "You know what, Joey, I'm gay." I said, "Okay." I was surprised that he would come out this late. Maybe.
Right, they do that. No, they do that.
I mean, it was like a curveball to me on it, but I didn't stop saying, I didn't turn around and say, "You know what, our friendship's over."
Were you shocked by your sister or by your friend at all?
More the friend, because I didn't. Okay. I'm not saying I couldn't picture.
Right, and then you're like, well, there might have been signs.
Yeah,
right,
nothing. On.
Right, I mean, nothing could sort of put a finger to. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I even I'm not. If it sounds like I'm about to offend the community, I'm apologizing in advance, but I'm not really.
Oh, I have pretty thick skin.
Yeah, but. Yeah. Well, no, I kind of like. I couldn't say test myself. I had I had this funny story, and this was back in it was in the 90s. It was either the 90s. Yeah, it was in the 90s.
It was a very good year.
All right. Yeah. And I went with a friend of mine, a different friend, and he's as hetero as I am. And we went to this place in Hoboken, New Jersey.
Oh, Jersey. Okay.
Yeah, because I grew up in Jersey. Yeah, and I actually went into some of the gay bars just to see if I would even get noticed. Just to see if there was an interest, for someone like me back in the 90s.
I'm sure you were quite a dish.
Actually, no, I wasn't. No one came up to me. No one.
Not like a young, sexy Danny DeVito or anything.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. But no one came up to me. I was like, okay, so I guess but I wasn't. I was like seeing like, hey, can I get picked up by a gay person? And having
well, at last call, almost anybody can.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
Well, not in the 90s, I'll tell you that. But So get back to the story about Hoboken. So we go to this place, and I'm enjoying my time and watching everybody have fun, like being like that outside looking in. So I'm sitting down, and my friend's on the other side, and this person comes up to him and starts smoozing him. And he turns around and freaks out. I'm like, oh my God. I'm sitting there like, oh my God, he's freaking out. Like someone tried to pick him up. And I started laughing when he freaked out.
Well, now it'd be a compliment. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're not. He's obviously not that bad. I mean, we're probably a very scrupulous bunch.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, but the lady that was with us was a bisexual. So I mean, she was very. I mean, I was interested in her. But
Sharon Stone basic instinct.
Yeah.
Bisexual femme fatale. I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, same thing with American Fox. I was in. Goes out. We are getting good. If you go on Twitter, Garrett, American Fox is on Twitter at American Fox 4.
I mean, curiosity alone, how could I stay away?
Yeah. So, So if you that picture of her is hot as hell. I mean, truly, I felt when she told me she was bisexual. I was like, okay, Well,
I find bisexuality. I mean, it is prevalent among a lot of species, but I think women are more comfortable and also probably aren't lambasted as much for being bisexual as probably a man who claims to be truly bisexual. A lot of people, bisexuality, that was that horrible thing like buy now, gay later. So, but some people who are truly, it's probably the B of LGBTQ is probably the one that gets lambasted the most. I would say.
Well,
being greedy or ambiguous or not really wanting to commit to one or the other. But then you get into the polyamory bit of it, which means they can love anything.
Yeah.
No matter the origin of the gender from birth. So, but bisexuality to really, truly not discern between one sex or the other is probably more prevalent than we think, but definitely is more acceptable in the female class than I think anything else.
Well, now these days, you know how you're saying how the bisexual in the LGBTQ community is being lambasted, but now you're hearing more about the transgender being blasted.
Oh well, yeah. Every time you get close to an election, it's always becomes popular. Let's make a bathroom bill. Let's make a non-issue an issue when we know for a fact they're more likely to be victims of hate crime more than anybody else probably within the group. They're hardest to maintain employment or get access to the necessary drugs and healthcare to assist and their transition. But they're definitely the pickup and popularity of scrutinizing them is always comes up closer to an election year, just like women's health issues too. They love to make social issues. The right. That's what we know what we're talking about. The Bobarts and the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world love to resurrect and dig up these issues. And they think by making pronouns or talking about Black Lives Matter is what's dividing us. But they always love to cherry pick these favorite social issues, never mind that the infrastructure of their states are completely crumbling, but we must pick on the women and the gays. That is what most people are most concerned about. No, we're concerned about gas prices, we're concerned about inflation, we're concerned about all these other things.
Yeah.
And they always resurrect the, now, like I said, I think the gay is so popular. You know, I mean, it's
Yeah.
so much more accepted.
Yeah.
And this is like the one thing that even certain gay people can't wrap their brain around. Like, oh well, you're just mentally ill. You're not born in the wrong body. You're crazy. So it's probably the one, you know, the transgender portion of LGBT. The T is probably the most misunderstood by most people. I thought Neil deGrasse Tyson said it perfectly. I forget what he was on. But he was talking on some program, and there was some conservative mouthpiece, and he was sort of, oh, the whole transgender thing and the downfall of society. And he goes, look, instead of trying to pass bathroom bills and trying to exclude them from a place of on the table in society, he's like, as a scientist, why don't we invest research into understanding how this is possible? I mean, for years, they tried looking for like a gay gene to try to figure out, well, what makes people gay, you know? And then obviously you have a set of twins and one's gay, one's not. So that kind of hit it on the head.
Right.
That was kind of out the wind. But he's like, well, instead of trying to, like I said, prevent them from going into public spaces, why don't you take some of that money that you put into these ridiculous, hateful, discriminatory bills and put it into medical research?
Yeah.
I'm sure the transgender person would love to know why, what form, you know, in the womb, why the brain forms one and the body forms the other. Right, I'm sure they would love to know. I'm sure they're very invested. Right. Especially if since, I mean, it's probably like coming out, but I'm sure there's some people who don't come to the conclusion. I mean, Bruce Jenner obviously thought about it for a majority of his adult life, but couldn't do it until much. Well, Bruce, I'm sorry.
No,
what is it? What is it? Why can I think of it? What is Bruce Jenner's new name?
Caitlyn.
Oh my god, Caitlyn. Oh my god, I was like, so Bruce became Caitlyn much later in life, but then there's kids who are at 5 years old.
Yeah.
I'm not Brian. I'm Brenda, and the parents do everything to support them, and then it's the controversy of, is a parent allowed to start giving their kids hormones and drugs, you know, before the age of 18? You know, that's another controversial issue.
Of course. Oh yeah, because, you know, and that brings it up to this question: what advice would you give to someone who is struggling to decide to come out as gay, lesbian, or transgender?
First of all, it is no one's business but your own. And I think whoever you tell, I think people who say, I must tell mommy and daddy. No, you do not. Not if it's going to hurt you financially, not if it's going to hurt you personally, affect your physical safety. I think anyone struggling to come out, you talk to your most sacred group. I don't care if it's a teacher, your best friend, because even like the character in my book, he's struggling with a decision and he's talking to his friend on the phone, and then he hears the third line click. And that's how the parents find out, and that's how he gets expelled from his private school, from his family, and everything like that. So that was not a safe space. So you come out on your own time clock, and whoever you come out to, it should be safe, and you shouldn't be like, well, I have to tell my mother. I'm like, not if you know you're going to be cut off from every single financial. No, you don't put yourself in physical or financial hardship just so you can be because some of those people, even if it's your own parents, you're not going to fix. You may not be able to change their mind. And you know, I think RuPaul said this before on some season. He's like, you know, as gay persons, we do get to choose our family. We get to pick our family. And I think that's very important. I think, you know, God bless the 5-year-old who comes out at 5 and the mom's like, let's go to gay pride. I mean, that's amazing. That personally was not my experience. That is not the experience of many people's. Even like before, when you're talking about your friend coming out late in life, it's probably something like an attic he wanted to clean out, like something he probably meant to do, but then the kids were born, then or they came and he didn't think they were coming. You know, there's so many reasons why these things get put off. Or like in the case of Bruce Jenner, you're the fastest man in the world, but you're
Mhm.
Caitlyn, but you're on Wheaties boxes.
Yeah.
You're the face of virile masculine. What does he have? Like 14 children at this point?
Yeah.
I mean, this man can procreate. Well, this
Yeah.
one when he was a man. I mean, he
Yeah.
could procreate. I mean, he
Yeah.
was the face of virility.
Yeah.
And
he came out late too.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many reasons, especially if there's like a social. I mean, look at when there's like a gay governor or something. I always think it's ironic when they actually try to pass gay legislation and then they get giving a hand job in a bathroom. I always think that's hilarious. But
actually, we did have a gay governor in New Jersey.
I know you did. That's why I was thinking.
Tim McGreevy.
But he had obviously pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not how he ran. He had the wife and the kids and taking pictures. So when's a good time?
Yeah.
A lot.
Like I said, that's kind of like what happened with my friend. Like I said, he was married. All of a sudden, he got divorced, and that's when he turned around and said, "You know what? I'm realizing this." And so like I said, when he said it to me, the first thing that came into my mind is I have to accept this. I can't, bash him at 40 something for coming out as gay and not being that support that he really would need.
Who would want to come out at that age? I think it's hard to come out at any age.
Yeah.
It must be easier for the 5-year-old because their worldview is limited. But
right.
If you have lived, it must be, the older you get, the harder it does become. I mean, I think that's why some people advocate you have to be honest with yourself, the people around you.
Right.
Like I said, I think you should choose who you do that to very scrupulously. However, I think, obviously, the governor of New Jersey, he had money. I mean, mom wasn't going to cut him off. That's not why. There was social pressure. So sometimes it's mostly usually familial, but a lot of the time it is social pressure, especially when people come out late in life and they're already established somewhere.
Right.
There was probably a bunch of reasons why they didn't come out before. And by the time they're 25, they're just sort of running the course.
You definitely got to come out to Philadelphia because we have a actual neighborhood in Center City, right around 12th, 13th, right around 12th and 13th Street in Center City.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know it was shot in Canada at the time, but I think Queer as Folk, when did it come out? 2005, 2008. It's on for 5 years on Showtime. But they had based, it was supposed to be the gayborhood of Philadelphia. That's what that was based on. It was supposed to be there. So, people don't think, everyone thinks about San Francisco, but they don't think about Philadelphia. Although it's a city of brotherly love. So there you go.
Well, Carson Kressley still comes around this area a lot.
Oh, yes.
He comes around for like the Miss America pageant.
He's like Glinda the Good Witch of the North. Yes, absolutely. I don't know if he would like if I said that. But he would like it. I don't.
So my last question for you is, what do you see with this community in the next 5 years?
Oh, honestly, that's a very hard question to answer because I think it relies largely and is contingent upon what happens in this next election.
Okay.
Because the day he went into office, the gay page on the White House came down.
Yeah.
And then was immediately restored the day Biden went in.
Yeah.
So I don't know what do they call them, log cabiners or something. Like I don't know if there's still gay Republicans, God help you. But because I don't know if you've heard, but the orange man does not like us.
I would kind of figured that.
But there must be, but there's still probably like maybe I don't know how many, probably still some gay Republicans or gay lesbians or whatever who think that the elephant is going to fight for the rights of them. And I'm here to say, no, they are not. So where do I see us? If he became elected, I honestly don't know. I mean, we have the courts are one resource that we have to strike down injustice. Now, if he did not win, okay.
And so if we're saying that Biden gets another term.
So where do I see us? Yeah, because the other way I couldn't say. God help us. But okay, if Biden won, where do I see us? I think we as a community, and that is everybody in the community, really have to realize that there are more stripes on the flag. There's more varieties of the stripes than are on the original flag. You know what I mean? It's supposed to be inclusivity. And, like you said, there's been these new groups asking for space at the table, non-binary and things of that nature. And I think even though gay is so accepted and lesbian is so accepted, bisexuality, I think sometimes, like, as we talked about, sometimes gets knocked on the nose, but I think the transgender and the non-binary people are still fighting for space at the table. So I think if the rest of us are going to persevere, then I think we have to all come together as a community and continue to make sure there's space for everybody, because I don't know what it's like to live as a transgender person. Thank God.
Okay.
I mean, at one point when I was struggling with my own sexuality, I thought it would have been easier, even though I loved men, if I was just born a woman. Because I could still wear all this jewelry, be with men, and then it wouldn't be an issue. But I'm not born a woman, I am a man. So I can imagine what it's like to be born with one set of part and the brain says another thing. I can't imagine what that's like, but then we must have compassion for things that we ourselves cannot understand. Yeah. And like I said, and who would want that? It sounds so hard. Who would want, as a gay, being gay is hard. So why are we trying to make it harder for other people? Call people what they want to be called, and we should fight for the rights of everybody. So I think the future resides in us coming and our ability to come together and create space for everybody, even though we don't understand it.
Well, let me ask you this, and again, if it sounds like I'm not trying to bash the community at all.
I don't think you have yet. I'll let you know if you are. But
yeah. But like you were saying, you were born. If you were born a woman, still wearing jewelry and all that. Think of the boy that decided in their brain that they're transgender and they have to go through the surgery. If you really think about it, don't you think that wanting to be transgender gets expensive?
Which is more to the point. Like I said, I'm assuming, and choice probably isn't the wrong word, but if you are making the choice to pursue to live your life authentically the way you want to live it, which goes more to the point. I mean, just based on statistics where you have a graph and you have a median and you have outliers, even if you had 100,000 transgender people, based on statistics alone, the one side of the curve, they can't be lying based on statistics. So because then people are like, well, some people have reversed the surgery, blah, blah. Be like, well, each case is different. Yeah. But obviously, as a group, as a transgender group, anyone who's going to go through the financial hardship, the hormone, the changes that must have on the brain, the social implications of it, then to go through with the surgery, I think all they need from anybody is support. Yeah, and I don't understand. Like I said, if you're willing to go through all that, there must be something to. Like I said, I can only speak for myself. Right. But obviously, they must be going through something that's real that we should have compassion for. Right. And of course, it's bloody expensive. I mean, look at these rings. It's hard to be gay, for God's sake. But to go through the hormones, the surgeries. I mean, for a while, most insurance companies wouldn't even cover it. I mean, people would have to turn tricks just to get their patches or their pills. Right. And then not to mention the side effects that certain ones can cause. Renal failure. Sometimes you can't do sustained hormone with pill. You have to go to patch, and patches are ghastly expensive. Right. Yes. So no, it's not a wrong question. You're like, God, isn't it expensive? You're like, yes, it is. Yeah, because it's expensive to be gay. The only people who are probably cutting corners are, like Susie Orman, that financial lesbian wizard. I think the lesbians are the only ones saving money. Maybe not all of them, But I think for the transgender community, of course, of course, it's expensive and it's a harder road. It must be a harder road.
Yeah, because you hear some that are they're like well, I was born a boy, but I'm really a girl, and I mean look at Elliot Page now.
Well, right. Well, see that it's so funny you brought that up because I was going to say everyone's very transfixed, even when it came to gay men. When they passed gay laws in England under Queen Victoria, they're like, well, what about lesbians? She says that doesn't exist. And when people are hung up on transgender issues and bathroom laws, they're always like, oh, well, women, they're under attack because men can come in and pretend. No one talks about women, and no one talks about. I was like, well, there are transgender, women who also become men, but everyone's very focused on the men who become women. Everyone's very focused on men who love men, but women in general. And if you're bisexual and you're a woman, you're hot. But if you're a lesbian, I guess no one's threatened by you, except that I guess you don't need a man. And so, but it's not, people aren't as disgusted by it.
Yeah.
As when it's man to woman and a woman, as opposed to a woman becoming a man.
Right.
Because she's effeminized, but the man becoming a woman, he's a threat. But it's not fair. Okay. We talk about it all the same.
Yeah. Here's another question. It just came into my head as you're explaining this, and I hear this. I'm starting to hear this a lot. I don't know if this would be considered in the community or not, but like the alpha. You always hear about alpha females and all that. Did you ever hear of that in the community? Of someone being an alpha?
Not so much. I mean, I think there's always been. I think to what you're referring, and I think gay men have had it, and women too. I think there's like a version of gay people that straight people are comfortable with. So like the coiffed. Like Will and Grace, like he was like a gay lawyer and was like passing. I don't think it's alpha. I think it's passability.
Yeah.
And everyone is very comfortable with a lesbian or a bisexual woman that looks like Sharon Stone. That's comfortable.
Yeah.
But if you have a gay boy with nails or a boy in a wig, like that's not alpha. It's like looked as like less masculine or less male or less than. Like there's something about the ideal that makes everybody comfortable, but is not the same.
Yeah.
And
I loved Will and Grace.
Everybody.
I loved Will and Grace. That was the funniest show.
I don't think we would have gotten gay marriage without it. I mean, I think a lot of people. I mean, because Ellen's show was ripped off the air in less than 5 minutes, and
Ellen was another one. Yeah.
But they destroyed her. But when Will and Grace came on, Obama actually said this in his speech. He's like, Will and Grace actually made people comfortable with the idea of gay people, whether they realized it or not. Yeah. It's like you could put a face to it. However, that face is not the only face. Yeah. There are multiple colors to the rainbow. So like that, I think that answers the alpha question. I just think it's like what our ideal that we think we would be comfortable with.
Yeah.
Or like when they do the the Folsom Fair. I mean, there's always like the gruff and all the muscle, and he does not represent. He represents like 5 people of the population, but that's the idea, So that's where I think that comes from.
Yeah, I mean, when Portia de Rossi came out as lesbian, I mean that shocked me because like I said in reference to my friend, you couldn't picture this person being gay or lesbian.
But why? I mean, probably because of stereotypes too. Because then also, while there's the ideal that makes us comfortable, then there's people that you're like, oh well, he's so masculine, he can't be gay, and like she's too hot to be a lesbian. So then you have that. So then you have that. So then it's the flip side. So I think there's like people that we project in our minds that we'd be comfortable with, but then are completely shocked by when they come out.
Yeah.
Or,
yeah.
you know, so I mean, why can't she be lesbian? You know, anybody can be, you know. But...
Right. No, and I understand it again, but I just couldn't, understand, because when Portia, way before Portia came out as lesbian, I mean, she was on Ally McBeal, and she was like the hottest looking female lawyer on the show. And,
that's why it took her so long to come out, because who would hire her? Now she's not hot anymore. Now she's not. No, but she would be unhireable. Like if she came, that's why it took her so long, because she would be disappointing all those people who had made her like this sex symbol.
Yeah.
And she can still be a sex symbol and still be a lesbian. I mean, look at Matt Bomer. That man is like, his skin is like a dolphin. That man is gorgeous. He was on, what was it, Blue Collar, White Collar, or whatever. Matt Bomer. He's also been on American Horror Story. Piercing blue eyes, black hair. I mean, the man's gorgeous. But he too.
I think he made a guest appearance on Will and Grace too.
Yes, on the second installment. Yeah. Yes, he was. Yes, he was Will's love interest. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, and he, he kind of came at the end of he probably wouldn't have had, if he didn't become an actor when he became an actor, let's say at the same time Portia would have come out, it wouldn't have been the same career.
Yeah.
He probably would have been lambasted and probably wouldn't have the career he had. He kind of came at the end of that. But she, couldn't be who she was for many, many years because she was, as you said, this sex symbol. Yeah. But he could be a sex symbol and be gay and be castable.
Yeah.
Which is different.
So we're coming up to the end of the time. And so how can we get a hold of you and get to your books and also briefly, well, before we get to that, take a minute out and explain about these events that like American Fox had asked about that you promote.
Well, some of the things that I do, well, I don't have anything coming up, but like when I have book signings, and I do have other podcast dates coming up on June 19th and then one, I believe, July 10th. So when those come closer to the date, like when I posted today on my Instagram for people to submit questions, and they did, I will post those. So if I have any book signings coming up, the world will be the first to know. So far, nothing yet. But for my upcoming podcast events, I will be posting those.
Okay.
As they draw nearer, and I usually post those on my Instagram, my Threads, and my Facebook, and all that. My book is available on Amazon. It's To Never See Heaven by Garrett Garland.
Okay. All right.
So that's on Amazon, and then it's yes, Garrett Stephen Garland is my Instagram handle, and you can see all of my international travels and posts about my upcoming podcast dates. So that's where you can find all that.
Well, Garrett, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for the interesting conversation about the LGBT community, especially during Pride.
Thank you for having me on. I thought it was a very fluid conversation.
Yeah.
And even the slight tech hiccups didn't really affect it at all. You're a very, very charming little man.
Oh, thank you very much.
I just wanted to like carry you around on my shoulder. I mean,
all right. I get to be a sack of potatoes. All right.
I mean, like, no, you're like, I wish we were related. You're like a charming, like, uncle. Like, you're just so fun. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Have me on anytime.
All right, yeah.
It was
not a problem. Yeah. We'll just, what might happen, actually, is, I'm waiting to see, because Anchor.fm podcast for Spotify for podcasters, their app is going to change around because, see, I do these live streams where I sent you the email.
Right.
But,
I know.
but
You
I
have
actually
your YouTube
record,
channel and everything. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
But I actually record it on the cell phone, and they're getting ready to change the app to where you can't record the podcast anymore. So if the podcast continues in July, everything is going to go just to the YouTube live stream, which isn't good. Well, I'm not saying it isn't the greatest, but I mean, I've been happy with this platform since I came across it. But definitely, yeah. Anytime you want to come on, just email me. We'll make it happen.
All right, and if you need to block a spot.
Oh, we always try to find a way to block a spot.
I'm here.
Yeah, and I'll definitely make sure American Fox will have more questions for you.
Well, thank you very much.
Because, like I said, yeah, and especially, like I said, if there's events that you have coming, at least there's a bisexual superheroine that would probably
we can have a podcast 3-way or something.
Yeah. We've been trying to work on that. That's the hardest part.
I know. Yeah, technologically, the Wi-Fi has to be able to take the strain. Also, that's a lot of personality.
Yeah. Not just that. No, I have discussed with her about coming on this podcast, and there's some little technicalities in reference to her coming on. So it's not like we tried. I wanted her to come on. I always want her to come on. She knows it too. So, but thank you so much.
There's time left in 2024, so we'll see.
Yeah. But thank you so much, everyone, for watching and listening to the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. Garrett, thank you so much for your time and most interest, and like I said, the most interesting conversation. I'm now a little more at ease about the community, even though I still had that little fear with the transgender, only because of the comfortability and still getting to know what the transgender life is like.
Yeah, and and we all learn. We're here on this plane for as long as we are to learn as much as possible, and I think to limit that would be a crying shame. Yeah. And I thought, like I said, as a host, you reciprocated very finely. So thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much, and thank you, everyone. God bless you all. You take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.